Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the gamblersWORLD.net NFL preview. I'm Chip Chirimbes. Special guests today are Mr. Vegas, Jim Feist, and one of the big-time players in Las Vegas, Paul Bovi. Guys, welcome. We're going to have a discussion today on Week 4 of the NFL, what we've had so far, opinion on a few games, and let's get started right now. Pittsburgh is 3-0. Leading the AFC Central, or AFC North, shall I say. And we have Cincinnati 0-3. Do you think Cincinnati's totally out of it right now? Jim, I'll start with you.
Well, first of all, Cincinnati is a very underspending franchise. It has been. Burrow, very talented young man. They have offensive line problems. They've had issues with Lamar Chase. They've had issues with Higgins. Their offensive line doesn't protect very well. Their defense has been a sieve. I mean, look what Washington did with them. And that was a rookie quarterback. Not a very well put together team.
Yeah.
Very overrated, in my opinion, for this year. Granted, they have had tremendous years since Burrow went there.
Yeah.
They played a tough game against Kansas City, and Kansas City, of course, is a Super Bowl champ. Yeah. But they're not in stroke either. As a golfer, they're not really in stroke at this point, so they're not putting up a lot. And we talked before the show, a lot of these games are almost like preseason games. They're not the players aren't in shape. They don't practice hard. They don't practice with pads. They have limitations on how much time they can practice in preseason. So like Bill Belichick said several years ago, he said, you're not going to really see what a team can do until week 4 or week 5, right, after they start to get into shape with these new CBA rules. And that's what we're getting. We're getting a lot of that. And you'll notice that home field advantage is probably 1 or 1.5 points. Underdogs are killing it. 14,600 people entered the Survivor contest. Yeah. There's only 600 left.
Amazing.
If I would have entered, I'd have been out in the first day, and then the second day, and the third day. I'd have been out every week. So,
Jim, we have Cincinnati at 0-3, and it really doesn't look like they have much of a shot. Other than the fact, there's 14 games left in the season. Paulie, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have Pittsburgh leading the division at 3-0. Do you think they're going to finish on top of this division when the season's over?
Well, is that Paul? Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you could take this one, Jim. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, they have a very good coach, and he's a kind of a coach. It's a throwback coach. He plays defense. He plays field position. He doesn't turn the ball over, and he doesn't need a big name $60 million a year quarterback to do it with. This guy is really like a Neanderthal, but he's brilliant at doing it. And, they always talk about he's never had a losing season. Well, I don't think he's going to
Jim, in spite of scoring only 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns the entire season and 3 wins, you think they can maintain this and win that division?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I mean, the best team in the division, who is it? I mean, it's got to be.
Everyone assumes it's the Ravens.
Yeah, but the Ravens lead the league in giving up 7-point or more leads in the fourth quarter. They just stopped playing. They're up 28-6 last week over Dallas, and then they stopped playing. And it ends up 28-25. That game wasn't 28-25.
No, it wasn't even close.
It should have been 40-10. So this is, why are they doing that? What's wrong with them? That I can't answer that question. That's more of a football question or a mentality question that I'm really not qualified to answer.
All right, Paulie, do you think either Cleveland can finally get it together with Watson does anything, and will the Ravens all of a sudden overtake the Steelers? They're only down 2 games. I mean, you have 7-14 to go.
By the way, guys, I still have 2 survivors, so I'm mulling over my weekend. Okay, but anyway, this division is going to be a mad scramble. Look, you can make a case that the Steelers were lucky on Sunday, because they were trailing at halftime 10-7, and then a plethora of injuries took the Chargers down. They lost Alt on the offensive line, who's really overachieved. He hasn't even allowed a pressure this year. They lose their left tackle Slater. Bosa goes out, and it was just a free for all when they put in Taylor Heineke. He just had absolutely no time. Then you look at Cincinnati. The problem with Cincinnati is their defense. In the first game, Stevenson went for 120 yards on the ground.
Right.
The next game, it was Kansas City, and Pacheco went out early with 90 yards, or else he probably would have ran for 150. And then, the other night, they actually stopped Brian Robinson on the ground, much to my chagrin. I had him over 50.5 yards. I think he ran 16 or 17 times, couldn't break through the line, but they couldn't stop Jaden Daniels. So there's a problem there. Now, Cleveland, 3 guys out on the offensive line.
Yeah,
you get the benefit of a turnover against the Giants early. They take a quick 7-0 lead, can't hold it. Giants come back, win the game. Until they get those offensive linemen back, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Baltimore again. Look, you guys know I had a big play on the Ravens Sunday, and I did something I never do. I started celebrating early in the fourth quarter, and the gambling gods got me back because I had to walk out with 2 minutes to go. I couldn't take anymore. I just walked out, started checking ESPN, got a final in, thankfully, 28-25, and I was able to cash a ticket. That division is just up for grabs. I'm not going to anoint anybody the winner at this point. A lot of it's going to come down to injuries. Ravens, 3 guys out right now are questionable on the offensive line, including center Linderbaum. They lost a few guys early on. So everybody in that division has liabilities, and it's a question of how the injuries break and who ups their game.
Yeah, I still think that division is up for grabs. Of course, we have 14 games to go. But I'd like everyone out there now, push the like button, push the subscribe. You'll be notified when we come up and be able to get these winners and this analysis from us, and at timely, whenever you need it, actually. What about Dallas? Before we get to anything, really, boy, they always say, and we've said this, Jim and Paulie, that no team looks as bad one week to the next. Well, I don't know if anybody can look any worse than the way that Dallas looked in their last 2 games.
Dallas,
go ahead, Jim.
Dallas's defense is a disaster. Jerry Jones, 27 years, 28 years, they haven't made the championship, and they're the most valuable franchise in the league. He needs to fire himself. Come on. He won't do that, of course, but it is defense, and their defense is terrible. Yeah, Dak can put up points, and if you pressure him, he's actually pretty good against pressure. And he's not worth $60 million in my book, but he can put up points, but that defense just doesn't stop anybody.
Yeah.
Now, maybe they can stop the Giants because they're kind of pedestrian, but it's come down to defense. There's nobody really solid, and I have to say this, Chip, you got to talk to Paul about getting a share of his position in Survivor because he's worth a fortune already.
But I know Paul's big playlist. Go ahead.
Your when you entered was worth $1,000 in entry. Now it's worth $28,000 per entry.
Imagine that.
Well, and I did lose 7 of them, and I'm not upset that I lost Cincinnati a few in the first week. I'm not upset that I lost the Ravens. You know which one upsets me, or 2 of them that upset me?
Eagles.
I lost one. No, I lost one on New England when they played Seattle. We had a lead with 30 seconds to go, or a minute to go. Geno takes them down the field, tying field goal. Seahawks win in overtime, and I bust out with 1. And I also had the Giants against Washington that week. And without Graham Gano kicking field goals and extra points, and the punter just blowing it up on the first try, that cost them the game.
That's why we call it gambling, Paulie.
What coach doesn't know that he needs a backup kicker?
Well, you know, we'll do what the Giants do.
What I didn't understand is there's something called the drop kick. So let the punter just try to drop kick it. Unless they eliminated that, which I wasn't aware of it, you could basically punt it through the uprights.
But that would be well. If he drop kicked it, it'd be considered a field goal attempt, and if he missed it, it'd come back to the line of scrimmage, because you can still drop kick an extra point or a field goal if you're adapt enough. Listen, we're about to give the free plays out there to everyone. I want to remind everybody that these guys, Paulie stepped out last week, had a huge winner with the Ravens, who crushed Dallas, and Jim's been sitting there, Mr. Vegas. So don't be afraid to log on, get their prime plays, get the plays at gamblersworld.net and become a winner off of this website, which has 12 of the most fantastic handicappers out there right now. All right, Jim, the game you were looking at, you mentioned before to me, was the New Orleans and the Atlanta game. And there's been some things thrown into a monkey wrench thrown into your original analysis. You want to expound upon that?
I do. First of all, I mean, if we have time, talk about division football. Last week, we didn't have very many division games. This is a big division game because that division, by the way, is very competitive. I don't think everybody thought that in the beginning, but you got the Saints and you got the Falcons and you got the Bucks, who's won it the last couple of years. And this is very, I mean, it's going to come down to injuries. I mean, everything in the industry comes down to injuries and turnovers and stuff like bad coaching decisions. I thought Atlanta blew it last week. I don't know. I was ready to throw things at the television because I have Atlanta +3, and they're sitting there. Kick the field goal, go down 2, get the ball back on your defense because Kansas City wasn't moving the ball and then win it with another. What the hell? I mean, I don't understand these decisions. Maybe it's metrics, maybe it's analyticals, but it drives me out of my mind. It was terrible decision making. Now, the Saints were putting up 44, 47 points again the first 2 games. Then they ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw with a better defense that Philadelphia does have, and they changed the scope of the defense, and they crushed the middle. They took away Kamara. They couldn't run the ball. From 4 to 47 points down to 12. Come on, that was a great defensive effort by Philadelphia. Should have won the game by a lot more. I was really surprised by that. Coming into this game, this is a division game where the Saints, usually both teams, do fairly well on the road in this division because home field really doesn't matter that much anymore in the NFL. It used to be a lot, not anymore. But so if you give Atlanta, they're 2.5 point favorite in this game. It probably should be 1. But when you look at the injuries on the Saints, who the hell's going to play? I mean, Kamara is a big question. I mean, that's a big loss. Offensive line players, defensive players. They're both got injuries on both sides, but there's a little bit more injury issue with the Saints. So now, even though I probably would have come back with the Saints, who are like 11-2 in the dog roll in division and play very well when they play Atlanta, I bet the under.
All right. And, you know, Jim, the attrition that the Saints had last week didn't hurt me because Philadelphia was my 3rd straight megabuck winner in the regular season, up in my megabucks, including the preseason of 7-1. Now, Paulie, you have an interesting game that you were looking at. The Bears are at home. They're playing the Rams, and the Rams coming off a big win against the Niners. And the Bears, we saw them on national TV, and their offense is putrid right now. Caleb Williams, number 1 draft pick. And right now, he's not the number 1 quarterback, that's for sure.
First of all, I want to make a point about injuries. There's just a proliferation of them all over the league, particularly on these offensive lines. Now, I'm going to have a caveat on this game because, like a lot of other teams, the Bears have issues on the offensive line, notably to Nate Davis, and I mentioned Linderbaum for the Ravens. The Packers, 3 guys questionable on the offensive line. Tampa Bay also, that is the case. So I urge you people, the wagerers, the bettors, to check these injury reports on Friday because they tend to firm up by then and you kind of get an idea of who's going to play. So let's comment on this game, but keep an eye on the injuries. Now, the Rams were lucky to win that game on Sunday. Couple things happened. It was 14-0 Niners. They were having no trouble moving the ball Brock Purdy and company, with backup players at the receiver position and the tight end position. But the Rams took the opportunity at 14-0 to fake a punt. They got a first down. It went in for a touchdown. The Niners had a chance to seal the game. Jake Moody misses a 55-yard field goal, would have made it a two-score game. The Rams had a 55-yard interference penalty to their benefit that led to another touchdown. The Rams only had, I think it was 280 yards. Two plays consisted of 82 of those yards, and they were outgained, I was going to say, by about 140 yards by the Niners. So I don't have a lot of faith in this Rams defense. If you look at game one against the Lions, when it counted, Detroit went down the field. Jamison Williams, 5 receptions, 121 yards. Then they go against Arizona. Kyler Murray, in a basically a whitewash, 41-10, I believe it was, threw sparingly, only 21 times, 17 completions. Marvin Harrison Jr., after being basically shut down in his opening game, 4 receptions, 130 yards. And then this past week, Jennings, I think he had 11 catches for a $130. So the 3 number 1 receivers against the Rams this year, 20 receptions, 420 yards. Their defense is at this point lacking. Offensively, they do have some issues, but Tutu Atwell has come in and filled in commendably for an injured Cooper Kupp. They've lost a few receivers along the way. It has hurt them, but they've managed to move the ball. Now, you look at the Bears here. The Bears have an inability to run the ball. But on Sunday, it actually got a little bit better. The stats wouldn't show it. They ran the ball 28 times for 63 yards, but there was a 13-yard loss at the goal line by Swift on an inexplicable 4th down play, which ended up turning the ball over to the Colts, and the Bears left without any points. They also got stuffed down at the goal line. So they did have some success running the football, but I think that Williams will have success through the air against this Rams defense. They may get back Keenan Allen. If they could get any semblance of success running the football, I think the Bears put up probably 24 to 27 points here, and that's going to get you enough here to cash a ticket on an over-under, which the number is, I think it's hovering around 41. The Bears should get a cover, and I think Chicago is going to come away with a win.
All right, thank you, Paul. Paulie, what you said is just supporting what Jim has said, that during the preseason, these guys don't get enough work. They don't come ready. And then, you're 4 games into the season and half the guys are injured because they weren't in shape to start with. And that has a lot of what we've already been saying. Jim said it about that game, and you've said it about the Atlanta, New Orleans game, and you said it here about the Bear game. I said already about Dallas, one team never looks as bad one week to the next. Guys, what's going on with Jacksonville? I mean, this team doesn't look like they can get a first down. This Trevor Lawrence doesn't look anything like a quarterback that was drafted number 1 out of Clemson. I mean, he's missing people by 8-10 yards, and I don't know if he's shell-shocked back there or what the story is, but when a team looks that bad, like I said, I always like to I don't want to fade them. I want to play them the next week. And I'm actually looking at Jacksonville a little bit here, and it won't be a serious play, that's for darn sure, because all the premium plays for all of us are at gamblersworld.net, and you know how to get there. You guys, so now we have Paulie came out with the over on the Chicago Ram game. Is that what you were looking for? And Jim saying that the whole New Orleans game is just totally decimated. I mean, the Saints, and they're playing Atlanta this week, which should be an interesting matchup. So that's it for the pros right here for us. Chip Chirimbes right here, and Jim Feist, Mr. Vegas, and Paul Bovi. Be sure to log on, follow the buy links, push the subscribe button so you'll know when we're going up, and you'll be able to get these winners on a continuum. I'll see you next week, everyone. Good luck.